Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. So, a little about ourselves. Hi, I'm Gilad, 6 years at Wix from Velo.
I'm Dor, 5 years at Wix from the Wix CLI team.
We're both from Wix Code inside the developer from Cluster. Cluster? Well, in the next 40 minutes, Dor, really?
Yeah.
In the next 40 minutes, we're going to tell you about a bunch of cool stuff many talented people from Wix Code wrote, but are they on the stage? We are on the stage. So everything you look at this presentation, the credit goes only to us.
So, in the past year, we've created a new ecosystem built from many different parts with a shared purpose to be the solution Wix needed for AI-first products. Bison decided to stupidly name them the Glorious 7. Let's introduce them. We have Codegen, our AI agent for Wix-based development. The Wix SDK provides easy access to all Wix business solutions. Wix CLI, a framework for building Wix projects. Bus, short for Backend as a service, a zero downtime hosting solution. Remote machine, providing isolated sandboxes on the cloud. Code store, persisting your code's history. And IDE platform, a customized code editor.
So, all of these super systems are already used in many Wix and Base44 products, like Harmony, App Builder, Studio 2 in the very near future, and many more. This session, we're going to focus on how we built all these systems by telling you the story of our very first customer, Wix Vibe. And by the end of the presentation, we'll show you how to use this newly created platform for many other services, including even maybe your next one.
Okay. During this session, we'll walk you through each one of our systems in order, starting from the ones we already had back a couple of years ago, which were the backbone for the product, then all the way to today, where we needed to elevate these systems with new tools that made them a perfect fit for AI-first development. I'll take the first part. We'll cover the product requirement we were given from Vibe, the existing tools that we had that we used for them, and we'll dive deep into the technicalities of each one of them. Bison, you can see this one out. I'll call you back when I need you.
See ya.
So, about a year ago, we were approached with a request to provide the needed infra for a new product in Wix. Wix Vibe, a Vibe coding platform for DIY users to generate with AI Wix sites. There were two major requirements. One, every site should look amazing. That's obvious. The second, it should be able to use all of Wix's ecosystem like ecom, bookings, CMS, and such. Basically, behave and act like every Wix site does, but completely AI generated. From a technical perspective, there was one thing that we knew. The user should put in a prompt and have everything else done for them. That's it, good luck. And off we went, starting with the prompt. We knew it should be sent somewhere to be processed. So we built the first part of the system, our Codegen, an AI agent that should get the prompt, talk to whichever model is the hottest at the time, and generate the needed code. The only real question was, what code do you generate in order to build a Wix site? Now, let's be realistic. Back then, over a year and a half ago, generating a Wix site using only code and standard code was not such a doable task. Wix has some very proprietary information on the document and how to extend it, and the editor takes care of this for you. So we tried to teach our Codegen how to generate a site using Wix, but it wanted to generate standard React code, and we couldn't force it into generating something that it doesn't understand. We quickly realized we had a problem. We were stuck. At the time, we already had users who were developing projects on Wix with code, but our Codegen can't. We needed to go back and understand what our users have that the Codegen doesn't. All the way back to 1992. 3 things happened this year. 1, me. 2nd, Bison. The 3rd, HTML is released. Now, in the next 35 minutes, we're going to go ear by ear until we understand together how all of this led us to build Wix Vibe. On a more serious note, the journey started in 2022, the era of open platform. Back then, Avishai, our CEO, this is Avishai, sent out Wix's roadmap for the year, highlighting the main prime directive. To climb the S-curve, we must have an open platform. No matter how good we are, we can develop everything and we can support everybody. So, we must be open. Basically, what Avishai meant is that we needed to take every API, every tool, every capability a Wix developer already has and give it to everyone. So that every developer, even outside of Wix, can build what we already built. We started our journey with the APIs, allowing users to communicate with every service offered by Wix without knowing too much about it. We've introduced the Wix SDK. The Wix SDK lets developers call the endless amounts of Wix APIs without knowing their mappings and their protocols. It does so by providing a type-safe package for each of the APIs with completions for requests and responses. Think of it as Ambassador, but on steroids and publicly available. Let's take a look into how a project and how a package like this is generated. Now, at this part, this is the first time we're encountering a deep dive slide. In those, we will go over a block diagram of each one of the systems and the technical details. You can identify them by the deep dive title, which signals you to start looking at your phone and pretending to listen. It will be over quick. Back to the SDK. The lifecycle of a package starts in GitHub, where the different Wix verticals constantly writes and update their protofiles. Whenever a change to a protofile happens, it is pushed to the master branch, and upon a successful build, it triggers our services, which converts the proto into a schema we call Business Schema API. Then, we take the Schema API and build the generated TypeScript code for a package out of it. This package, which we call an AutoSDK package, is then pushed into a shared GitHub repo where all of those packages exist. And upon a successful build of this one, they are all published to the public NPM registry, ready for user consumption. So, first part is done. Users now have an easy way to call every API in Wix, query bookings, update products, fetch CMS collections. Good, but there's still a lot more than the developers needed to do. They needed to configure their code base, handle the build process, set up all the configurations. So, to ease on them, we've introduced the Wix CLI, a framework by Wix that lets you write your own business logic while it does all of the rest for you. The CLI is a one-stop shop for headless site development on Wix. We'll soon touch headless sites and you realize how it comes into play. It communicates with Wix for you, so you can do everything you need in one place without leaving your IDE. It also lives inside your code base and adds all the Wix stuff to it, so you don't need to take care of that. Let's understand how it does that. When the CLI starts for a developer that works on the project locally or for production, it starts with the setup steps, reading the extensions in the project, loading the entry files, generating needed configurations. Then, it enriches the user code, where the magic happens, by adding more code into it that takes care of authentication, creating an SDK client, injecting HMR client, and more. Eventually, it runs Vite under the hood with all of that knowledge in order to generate the correct output for each part of the project. All of this process opens in a loop whenever a file changes that the CLI cares about. Also, when developing locally, a node server starts that does all of this internally and serves the output through a socket connection to the client, providing HMR and local development experience. Basically, the framework takes the code we want the users to write and generates the code Wix expects to run. Okay, so now we have a framework we can use to code, we have the SDK we can use to integrate with Wix, but we can build a headless site perfectly easily at that moment. But why would we do it? Why would we want to, and how does it help with our story of building Wix Vibe? Let's understand what a headless site is, and we can see why. Headless is the ability in Wix to detach yourself from the editor, using Wix's back office and backend APIs as backend providers for whatever client you decide. It can be, like in my case, a web app built with React, or more creative options like Chrome extensions, mobile applications, you name it. Every call that you make from your custom client back to Wix are both authenticated and authorized through an integration with identity we call auth applications. Remember the issue we had with Codegen, where it wanted to build a Wix site by generating standard React code? Headless is the solution. And with the CLI and the SDK, developers can easily build such projects. The only thing that they're really missing is, after they build the project, how can they run it? They needed to deploy the project and make sure that it's accessible both to Wix and to their users. To complete the cycle, we've built the last part of this ecosystem at that time, which is Bus. Short for Wix Code's Backend as a Service, it's our cloud hosting solution for user code. It gives users a Vercel, Render, or Netlify-like solution, but built by Wix. Let's take a look into how we serve code request that gets into Bus. This is, for this first part, the final deep dive slide, and then we're going to jump into a demo. Okay. Whenever a request gets to Wix, and I mean any request that gets to Wix, it first gets to the router server. This is the main service in Wix that handles all of the traffic. From there, usually, requests are directed to the viewer, which renders most of the Wix sites you know. But when a request gets to one of the domains that we know, the router server directs it to our service, App Gateway. There, we handle and serve the traffic, we handle and serve the user's code from one of our cloud providers. We support Cloudflare through our own Cloudflare worker that executes the user code, and also the Wix Velo Grid, where a Kubernetes cluster, where we have our Velo node runtime that serves the statics from S3 and the user's backend code from our own NFS. Each deployment that we do for our users is always available and deployed to both runtimes, allowing us to alternate between them in the flick of a switch and maintain zero downtime for our users. Awesome. An SDK, a framework, a hosting provider. This lets us scaffold, develop, integrate, deploy. We can have everything we need in order to manually create, back at the time, headless Wix sites using code. Let's take a look how it looks like back then in the day, and then we'll connect it to Wix Vibe. Okay. This is a site I've created on Wix. I've got my meta site here, standard Wix business, nothing weird to it. It got all of the applications, business solutions, verticals, all of the settings, all of the things that I can do with Wix sites. Also, I have my CMS collections here. In this case, I have a CMS collection, which is a merchandise page. It is used as a catalog for my site, and it has a bunch of Wix engineering conference merchandise. Now, I want to take this meta site, and I want to build a UI for it, but I don't want to use the editor, as I've said. I want to use my own custom code. Let's do it. Jumping into my IDE, as you can see, again, I'm back in the day. So this is VS Code, no cursor, no AI, no depression. And if I want to create a project for my meta site with code, all I need to do is run the CLI's create command, a publicly available command on NPM, which will introduce me with a funnel of questions to get me my first starter project easily. Then, after running the set command, a project will look something like this. As you can see, this is a very standard JavaScript and TypeScript project. Nothing too much Wix about it. We have our tsconfig for TypeScript, our tailwind for styling, package.json for any NPM package we'd like, and the only thing that is actually Wix about it is one config file that tells the CLI, the business ID, and which site to connect it to. If I take a look at my components, you can see that I have one React component. That's it. That's my entire code base. An empty React component that should be the page showcasing my merchandise. Let's run the project locally and see what we get. Now, obviously, my page is empty, as you can see, because that's what I had. And now let's implement our entire merchandise page. All I need to do to get a merchandise page up and running with React is generate the needed code, 80 lines of code, no more of a standard React component. No Wix requirements in how you should do it. You can copy paste whatever you want from everywhere, and in the future, generate it. Now, if I save this, you can see that I'm getting the CLI's HMR experience, automatically showing me the page that I just wrote. It shows me the merchandise page that I have, but no products, because I need to actually get them. You can see here that I have my merchandise, which is empty array, and if I want to get them, all I need to do is these two lines of code. Items.query with the merchandise label, which means that I want to query my items from the CMS collection of merchandise. How do I get this items.query? Like we said, Wix data auto SDK package that was generated for me by the SDK that I can use to integrate with the Wix CMS. Now, as you can see, I also, trust me, don't have anywhere in my code base, no authentication, no client creation, nothing. This is all of the code, and the CLI and the SDK does all of it for me. If I save and I now go to see the HMR, I can immediately see all of the merchandise that you just saw in my Wix business. To prove you I'm not lying, as you can see, I have one t-shirt here that is the Wix EngConf 2024, which is obviously incorrect because this is not where we are. So let's go to my business, let's change it to 2026, save it, changes saved, and upon a refresh, you can see that it's immediately updated. This is all I need to do in order to build the merchandise page. Now, if I want to take the project out of localhost, where everything works perfectly fine for me, but not for my users, all I need to do is deploy the project. In order to do so, I can run the CLI's release command, which I won't do in a conventions network, but it will deploy all of the said code and the project to Bus, like we said, our backend hosting solution, and will give me the same merchandise page, but served from wixvibesite.com, our domain on Bus. Let's head back to the presentation and back to 2026. And now we need to build Wix Vibe. And what we understood is that if the Codegen wants to generate React code, all we need to do is have Wix Vibe build those type of projects exactly, but for their users. The only question is, can the Codegen do it? Let's see how the Codegen is built and understand if it could. When a prompt gets to our Codegen, it uses a set of custom rules that we wrote to plan out what needs to be generated. It can be React components, site pages, backend code, whatever you need. Then, through our LLM proxy, it talks to whatever model we decided, which currently is Sonnet 4.6, and using our Wix MCP and Wix CLI skills, it makes sure that the generated code is using our best practices and the Wix SDK inside it. Then, eventually, it writes the generated code into the correct file structure using our file system tools to make sure we have a file structure that complies with the CLI's project structure. If we understand this, we know that the Codegen can take the AI model and generate standard React code because that's easy for the AI model. And thanks to our integration, it can make sure that this React code looks exactly like this Headless project that you just saw. Okay, we no longer have a problem. Instead, when building Wix Vibe, we had a solution. All we needed to do in order to generate sites for our users with AI is make sure that the Codegen runs the CLI and gets a Headless project exactly like this one, but runs the CLI well. It's not that easy. It's a 40-minute lecture, and we're just at the 20th mark at best. So we realized the tools that we had weren't enough, because there's prerequisites to use them, which were okay to ask from developers, like Node, Git, or for the life of me, a laptop, and our Codegen had none of it. We needed more than the tools that we had. We needed help, and this is why I'm doing this lecture with Bison.
Hey again. So, as our lovely Chaouat just mentioned, we needed a place to run our newly created infrastructure and Wix CLI. Introducing Remote Machine. Remote Machine is a system for spawning and managing machines on the cloud, specifically designed for running untrusted code and processes. Users can run anything they want on their machines, so you can think about them just like a personal computer, but on the cloud. Our machines have two flavors. First is a sandbox. A sandbox is a long-running stateful machine that users can interact with during all of its lifetime. This is perfect for the development cycle of Wix Vibe. For example, a Wix Vibe enters the editor, writes in a prompt. A new sandbox is spawned where a code can be generated. Then let's say a few minutes later, the same user enters another prompt. This prompt can be executed on the same already running machine. Now, the second flavor is a job runner. As opposed to the sandbox, job runner is a short-living machine that has only one single purpose. Once this purpose is complete, the machine is no longer needed and can be terminated. This is perfect for the publish flow in Wix Vibe. For example, when a Vibe user wants to publish his site, then a new job runner machine will be spawned. In it, the code will first be fetched. Then it will be built and deployed. And again, once the deployment is completed, we no longer need the machine, so it can be terminated. Let's deep dive into the architecture of remote machine. We start with the consumer, in our case, Wix Vibe. If Vibe site wants to spawn a new machine, it needs to use our remote machine service, which is a node server which serves as orchestration layer. Its responsibility is the full life cycle of the machines, spawning them, sending tasks to them, getting status, and if needed, killing them. To get to the actual machines, remote machine service uses the Velo grid. Yes, exactly the same Velo grid Chaouat mentioned in his deep dive of Bus earlier. For remote machines, the Velo grid has a warm pool of pods, or actually a warm pool of remote machines, already ready to go. So, if a Vibe site needs a machine, all Velo grid has to do is to take one of these machines and assign it to the actual site. This enables us to spawn machines very, very quickly with very minimal cold start. Now, remote machine service is a generic orchestration layer. We already have an integration with Modal Labs, which is one of the market leaders in sandbox providers, and if needed, we can add more vendors as well. What's important to note is that regardless of the vendor, each machine is its own isolated environment, totally disconnected from other machines and from Wix itself. This enables us to run this untrusted code and processes I mentioned earlier. So Codegen finally has a home. It has a remote machine. Let's look how it plays out by the story of Codegen and the machine. So a Vibe user enters Wix Vibe, enters a prompt, a new machine is spawned where Codegen is generating code. After a few iterations, the code looks just perfect. The user is content and is ready to get his fully deserved sleep. And the machine also goes to sleep. Machines get tired as well, you know. New day has come, and the Vibe user wants to continue working on his site. So we spawn a new machine, in it a Codegen, but the problem is the code that Codegen generated yesterday isn't found in the new machine. It's not in the new machine because we didn't store it. And we didn't store it because we didn't have anywhere to store it in. Introducing CodeStore. CodeStore is a centralized place for storing and managing code versions of remote machine projects, or in our case, Vibe sites. Let's deep dive into the architecture of CodeStore and what it has to offer, and ignore this title that shouldn't be there. And let's talk about the create version process of Wix Vibe. We start again with the consumer, Wix Vibe, and the machine. And let's say the machine already is running, it has some code in it, and the user wants to create a version. Again, consumer is using remote machine service, the same one as before, which in turn gets the remote URL and credentials from a dedicated server of CodeStore. These URLs and credentials are passed to the machine, and that's where the magic happens. The communication between the remote machine and CodeStore is done by simple Git commands. Let's talk about CodeStore offerings and see how it's done. So CodeStore has two storage options. First, we allow Vibe users to connect their site into their own GitHub repo, if they have any. In this case, the remote URL is just the user's GitHub repo, and the standard Git push is executed from the machine to the GitHub. The other storage option we have is our own S3 bucket with a directory per remote machine project, or in our case again, a directory per Vibe site. In this case, we add another tool in the machine called Git Remote S3, which just converts native Git operations into S3 requests. And again, Git push. Guys, I know you've been through a lot. We've been through a lot as well, but I promise you one last stop and we're good to go. So now we're really getting there. We have a machine where code can be generated, and we have a place to store this code, CodeStore. Look at that Codegen there on the machine, all smirking, sitting on the machine, running code, storing versions, publishing, chilling on the machine. For Codegen, life is perfect. But Codegen isn't everything. We realized Wix Vibe has users. Some of them are coders. The coders want to see what's going on in the machine and maybe even change it. We realized we needed to break the walls of the machine, and we realized we needed to introduce a man on the inside that can communicate with those Vibe users. We needed Wix IDE platform. I expected the applause, so water break. Wix IDE platform is a React component which embeds a full IDE experience, or in our case, a VS Code experience, into any React app. One less deep dive, I promise. So we have the host. The host is the Vibe editor in our case, and we have a remote machine. First, in the remote machine, we'll install a remote VS Code server, which is an open source VS Code server that can communicate with the remote VS Code client. Vibe editor will now add our component, which will render a fork of VS Code inside an iframe. This fork of VS Code is comprised of two parts. First, it has the HTML of the VS Code client itself, which is served to us from the VS Code server. Also, we have a JavaScript component we wrote, a JavaScript library, we wrote, that's called Wix protocol. It's responsible for a two-way communication between the Vibe editor and the remote VS Code server. Let's see this two-way communication from a product point of view. So let's say Codegen generated some React component in my site, in this case a button, and I want to see the code behind this button. I'll press a show code feature, which we'll introduce, which will send a request from the Vibe editor through the Wix protocol to the remote VS Code server with the file path I want to open. The VS Code server will just need to open this file and the user can see the code. Now, the user saw the code. He understands almost everything, but there is a line he doesn't actually understand, and he wants to ask AI something about this line. he can highlight this line in VS Code, and press an Ask AI feature will also introduce. Then a request will be served from the VS Code server through Wix protocol to the Vibe editor, and this code can be sent to Codegen, and he can ask AI everything he wants. The last piece of the puzzle. Now we also have an IDE that Vibe users can communicate with it with the code in the remote machine. Now I think we have all the parts we need to build Wix Vibe. So let's build Wix Vibe, I guess. We'll start with the editor. We'll add a remote machine. In the remote machine, we'll first add Wix CLI, which will introduce its dev server, so the site can be served to the Vibe editor, so users can see the site. Then a Codegen, which enables users to enter prompt, and the prompt will be executed on the machine. We'll add ID, so they can see what's going on in the machine. Do you want versions? Code store. You want to publish? Bus. And there you have it, the full picture, our glorious 7 power. Thank you, thank you. So, our glorious 7 is now powering Wix Vibe. But we know our presentation looks amazing, but we don't want to fool you. We want you to see the actual Wix Vibe editor. So, let's show it to you. So, this is the Wix Vibe editor, the real one. But it looks pretty empty, right? It's empty because currently none of our systems are active. Let's introduce them one by one and see what it does to the Vibe editor. We'll first add the remote machine. Now, the site is attached to a specific remote machine on the cloud, which we can run anything on. We currently don't run anything on it, so you don't have Vibe features yet. So let's start running things on the machine. We'll start with the CLI. The CLI introduces his dev server, and now in the Vibe editor, I can see the preview of the site. That's amazing. Now let's introduce Codegen. Oh my God, this added this left panel. Now users can write prompts that can be run on the machine. Next, we'll add IDE platform. IDE platform added this beautiful tab, which if I press, I can see the code that is running on the machine. This is the code that Codegen generated on the machine that now users can watch and change if they want. Now if I go to, I don't know, the merge page, because you remember every line of code that Dor showed you in the demo, you quickly understood that it's the exact same code that Dor showed. This is the code for the merge page, the headless code that Dor talks so much about, that is powering behind the scenes by Wix SDK, specifically the data SDK. So we understand that the headless code is what powers Wix Vibe sites. And if we go to the merge page, we'll see that it's the exact same page. Next, we'll go to Code Store. Code Store added two things. First, this button. Here we can see the version history I created for my site. I already created it a while ago. All these versions are available in Code Store. Users can see these versions and return to each one of them if they want. Also, if you go back here, we ask ourselves, where is the code actually stored in? If I press here, I can see I connected my site, to a GitHub repo I own. So this is the source of the code store in our case. Finally, we'll add bus as well. Wow, those two buttons are amazing. Now the users can preview and publish the site. Again, as Dor mentioned, we don't trust the network here, so we already published the site. But you can see the URL of the site already published. And if I go here, I can see my already published site. And this site is stunning and beautiful, just like we were requested, generated by Wix Vibe, powered by all of our glorious 7. Pause for a huge applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really, really, really. Stop, you're embarrassing me. Stop, 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 stop. So, that was Wix Vibe, but as mentioned in the beginning of our presentation, we are already running in many other products, in Harmony, in App Builder, Studio 2, and many, many more. And everyone, I think that wraps our talk. These were our glorious 7.
No.
You can use them in any system you want. Please, guys.
No, we're not done.
What do you mean we're not done?
First of all, we have 9 minutes left. And second of all, I brought you in because I needed help.
Yeah.
But
you got help.
Yeah, but
you saw Wix Vibe.
Yeah, Vibe is in production.
Okay.
Vibe.wix.com.
Yeah.
It's built, I know it.
We built it.
I know.
Yeah.
But I brought you in because I needed help to build products that are not already in production. New things that I want to create. And you promised me a generic ecosystem of toolings.
It is.
And I want to use them for my next products and not have you come to the next engineering conference and talk about your newer, really generic systems.
Well, that's pretty rude of you, but sure. What did you have in mind?
Okay, bear with me.
Yeah.
First one is unrelated to Wix. It's only for me. As you unfortunately know, everything I talk about, I also like to draw. So
a lot of nights,
so I'm a heavy user of Wix CLI, but what bothers me is that I don't understand how they still not have like an AI asset, image, video generation in the canvas and have me go outside every time. So I thought about like a whiteboard that leans heavily into AI generation of assets.
Okay, that actually sounds reasonable. A total new system, and I'm sure we can build it with our systems. So, clean slate. And first, you want like a canvas thingy, you need first an editor for it. That's on you, okay?
Yeah, Headless, React, I did it already.
Perfect. We'll start you off with the machine, because you need somewhere to run your Codegen in. And which Codegen will you use, ours?
No, Wood again. I'm happy that you have your own Codegen, but in this case, you promised me generic systems, and I want to use my own because it wraps Nano Banana and it generates AI images and assets. So kind of hoping I can use this one.
Again, rude, but sure. Adding your Codegen. And what's next?
For this product,
yeah.
And I think that's fine.
No, what do you think you're fine? What about versions, for example? Don't you want to have the options to store versions of your canvas somewhere?
Yeah, undo, redo, Command Z, yeah, makes sense. Versions.
Yeah. So, code store.
Okay. And if we're talking about storage, then you know what? It generates a bunch of assets. I don't want to serve them from the file system. I obviously want to cache them, have it be done for me.
Obviously. Bus to the rescue. And nice. I think that sums you up. Let's go it.
One final product and you can go for lunch, I promise.
Okay.
Okay, this one it might be useful for Wix. I don't know. I'm not a product manager, but lately, as I assume half of the audience, I've deployed my own OpenClaw assistant using Hostinger. Now, besides of wasting all of the money that I've ever gotten from Wix, it also helped me, showed me the one-click deploy feature that they have. And I instantly fell in love and thought about maybe we can do like a seamless one-click deploy thing in Wix for AI personal assistants.
So you're basically a sucker for every trend in Wix AI.
Yeah.
Got it, sounds reasonable. So again, starting from scratch. So I'll add a remote machine. You said you wanted OpenClaw, right?
Yep.
Adding OpenClaw. Nice. Actually, why just one? I'll add multiple of them. They can talk to each other, do whatever. You have an actual purpose of them or just for the lols?
No, it's nice. Didn't know I can spawn many, but I don't want them to be that boxed in. I need them to send messages, receive messages, talk to the outer world, WhatsApp, something.
Got it. Look me in my eyes. Easy peasy. You can just expose a port from the machine and you can communicate with this port with any protocol you want. SSH, HTTP, WebSocket, you name it. That should really sort you out, I think, and we can wrap it up, right?
Yeah, but you know they have their markdowns,
Yeah.
Sol, agents, those things. I want to make sure it doesn't get
Code
lost.
store.
Okay,
You need code store.
but if they generate code and I want to see the code,
Then ID platform.
and
Listen. I'll tell you this way. You have a machine, right?
yeah,
Okay. You have a Codegen. You have places to store the versions of the machine. You have an ID to see the code in the machine. You can publish everything. You have headless code. You have every building block you need to create any AI-based product. Any product.
Any.
I promise. Yalla, wrap it up.
I wrap it up.
You wrap it up.
Oh, thought you were wrapping it up. Okay.
No.
Basically, the summary that Bison told here is that I tried to challenge him with products that I wanted to create, and he delivered with his systems that I can build anything and compose whatever parts I want from them, give or take any, to build any product AI-driven that I can think of. But we urge you, hopefully, to go to our Slack channel and tell us about products that you think you can build with those systems, which is nice to hear always, but even better, products that you think will challenge us and our systems can build. And let's see what you have. Thanks.